Hey, what's up? I'm Peter, and look, I'm going to be real with you right from the start. If you clicked on this video, you're probably sick of feeling like you're on a hamster wheel. You work hard, money comes in, money goes out, and at the end of the month, nothing's really changed. Maybe you've got like 34/7 in your savings account, and you call that your emergency fund. I've been there. And here's what nobody tells you. The system is literally designed to keep you there. But here's the crazy part, and this is what kept me up at night when I first figured this out. The gap between paycheck-to-paycheck living and actual financial independence isn't as massive as you think. It's not some impossible mountain to climb. It's more like a series of very specific steps that most people just never learn because, honestly, nobody teaches this stuff. So in the next 2 hours, I'm going to walk you through the exact roadmap, not theory, not some feel-good motivational BS about believing in yourself. I'm talking about the actual system, the numbers, the strategies, the specific moves you need to make, and the order you need to make them in. And before we get into it, I'm going to save the absolute best part for the end. There's one strategy that changes everything once you hit a certain income threshold, something that happens around the $75,000 to $100,000 mark that literally nobody talks about. It's not sexy, it's not complicated, but it's the difference between building wealth slowly and building it exponentially. So if you stick around to the end, I promise that one insight alone will be worth these 2 hours. All right, let's start with where most people actually are, because I think we need to be honest about the starting point. Chapter 1, the brutal truth about where you actually are and why it's not your fault. So here's the thing about being stuck financially. Most people don't even realize how stuck they actually are. They think they're doing okay because they're paying their bills, they've got a job, maybe they're even putting away $50 a month into savings. But let me show you what doing okay actually looks like in real numbers. The average American has about $5,300 in their savings account. That sounds okay, right? Until you realize the average unexpected expense, like a car repair, a medical bill, losing your job, costs around $1,200 to $1,500. So that savings account, it covers maybe 3 or 4 emergencies before you're completely wiped out. And that's assuming nothing major happens, which, let's be honest, life doesn't work that way. Here's what's even crazier. 63% of Americans, that's literally almost 2/3 of people, can't cover a $500 emergency without going into debt. Think about that. $500. That's like one car repair, one root canal, one plane ticket home for a family emergency. And you know what nobody wants to admit? If you're living like this, it's not because you're bad with money. I'm serious. The game is rigged from the start. Here's what I mean. Let's say you're making $50,000 a year. That sounds like a decent middle-class income, right? After taxes, you're taking home about $38,000 to $40,000 depending on your state. That's roughly $3,200 a month. Now, let's look at where that money actually goes. Rent or mortgage? In most cities now, that's easily $1,400 to $1,800 a month for a basic 1 or 2 bedroom place. Let's say $1,500 to be conservative. That's already 47% of your take-home pay gone. Car payment and insurance, another $450. Student loans, the average payment is $350 a month. Groceries for one person, if you're being careful, about $300. Phone bill, $80, internet, $70, utilities, $150. You see where I'm going with this? We're already at $2,900 and we haven't even talked about gas, car maintenance, clothing, any kind of social life, going out to eat even once, streaming services, nothing. You've got maybe $300 left for the entire month for everything else, and this is with 0 unexpected expenses. This is why saving feels impossible, because mathematically, with the way expenses have scaled up, while wages stayed relatively flat, most people are running on a deficit before they even start trying to save. But, and this is important, that doesn't mean you're stuck forever. It just means you have to be way more strategic than previous generations had to be. Your parents probably could just save 10% and invest in an index fund and everything worked out fine. That was a different economic reality. We're playing a different game now. So what's the first real move? How do you actually start breaking out of this cycle?
The answer is going to sound simple, but most people skip this step, and that's why they fail. You have to create space, like actual financial breathing room. And you don't do that by just cutting back on lattes. I hate that advice so much. You do it by completely restructuring how you think about your money flow. Here's what I mean. Most people have one bank account where their paycheck comes in and all their expenses come out. It's chaos. You have no idea what you're spending on what, everything's mixed together, and at the end of the month, you're like, where did it all go?
The first move is what I call the zero-based account system. This is simple but powerful. You need at minimum 3 accounts and ideally 5. Stay with me here. Account 1, income dump. This is where your paycheck lands. Nothing else happens here. This is just the receiving zone. Account 2, fixed expenses. This is for your rent, utilities, subscriptions, insurance, anything that's the same amount every month. The day your paycheck hits, you immediately transfer the exact amount needed to cover these expenses to this account. You set up all these bills to auto-pay from here. Account 3, variable expenses. This is for groceries, gas, going out, shopping, stuff that changes month to month. You give yourself a set amount and transfer it over. Account 4, savings buffer. This is your oh shit money. Unexpected expenses come from here so they don't derail everything else. Account 5, investments and future money. This is what you're building toward financial independence with. Now here's why this system is so powerful. When you have one account, every time you look at your balance, you have no idea if that money is available or if it's already allocated to something, so you make dumb decisions. But when you can look at your variable expenses account and see exactly what you have left to spend this month, your brain works differently. You're not guessing, you know. I set this up 3 years ago, and within the first month, I found an extra $240 I didn't even know I was wasting, just by seeing it clearly. But okay, that's the structure. Now let's talk about the actual numbers you need to hit to break out of the paycheck-to-paycheck trap completely. Chapter 2, the first financial milestone, your $2,000 reality check. All right, so you've got your account set up. You can actually see where your money's going. Now what? Here's where most advice gets it wrong. Everyone tells you to save 3 to 6 months of expenses right away. That's your emergency fund, right? Wrong. Well, not wrong exactly, but it's not the first step. Because if you're living paycheck to paycheck right now, telling you to save $15,000 before you do anything else is like, imagine you're drowning and someone yells, "Hey, swim to that island 5 miles away." Thanks, real helpful. The first real milestone is what I call your reality check fund, and it's exactly $2,000. Not $2,500, not $1,500, $2,000. Here's why this number matters. Statistically, $2,000 covers about 85% of common unexpected expenses. Car repairs, the average is $500 to $800. Medical copay or urgent care visit, $150 to $300. Broken phone, $200 to replace with a decent refurbished one. Lost your job? $2,000 buys you time to figure things out without immediately spiraling. But more importantly, and this is the psychological part that nobody talks about, $2,000 is achievable. Like you can actually see yourself getting there. If you can scrape together $250 a month, that's 8 months. If you can do $400 a month, that's 5 months. It's real, it's tangible. And once you have it, everything changes because now you're not making decisions from a place of fear. You're not one bad week away from putting groceries on a credit card. You have options. So how do you actually get to $2,000? Because again, if you're living right up against your income, finding an extra $250 a month isn't easy. This is where you have to get temporarily uncomfortable, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. For the next few months, your goal isn't to live your best life. Your goal is to create space. Here's what that looks like practically. First, the phone bill. Most people are paying $80 to $120 a month for phone service because they're on Verizon or AT&T with some plan they signed up for years ago. Switch to Mint Mobile or Visible. You can get unlimited data for $25 to $35 a month. That's $50 plus back in your pocket immediately. But Peter, what about coverage? Look, unless you live in super rural Montana, the coverage is fine. I've been on Mint for 2 years. It works. Second, subscriptions. Pull up your bank statement right now, and I'm serious. Pause the video and actually do this, and look at every recurring charge. Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, Spotify, that gym membership you haven't used for 4 months, that meditation app you signed up for once, the meal kit service,
all of it. Kill at minimum half of them. Not forever, for the next 6 months while you're building this $2,000. You can share accounts with friends or family. You can use free alternatives. This alone is probably another $50 to $100 a month. Third, and this is going to hurt some people's feelings, you have to freeze your lifestyle for a bit. That doesn't mean never going out or being miserable. It means being very intentional. Instead of getting takeout 3 times a week, you do it once. Instead of buying lunch at work every day, you meal prep on Sunday. Instead of buying that new thing on Amazon, you wait 2 weeks and see if you still want it. I know this sounds like standard cut back and save advice, but here's the difference. You're not doing this forever. You're doing this with a specific target and timeline. You're in sprint mode. And the beautiful thing about sprint mode is that it's actually kind of fun when you can see the finish line. You're watching that savings account number go up every week. You're gamifying it.
Real example from my life. When I was building my first $2,000, I had this spreadsheet. I know, I'm that guy. And every single dollar that went into savings, I updated it. I had it on my phone. Some weeks I'd add $75, some weeks $40, but I watched that number climb from $200 to $500 to $940 to $1,500 to finally $2,047. Took me about 7 months. The day I hit it, I literally took a screenshot and sent it to my friend being like, I did it. She was like, Peter, it's $2,000, not $1 million. But here's what she didn't get. It was the first time in my adult life I had money that wasn't already allocated to something else. It was mine. It was safety. It was freedom. And once you have that $2,000, you're playing a completely different game, because now you can start thinking about the next phase, which is where things get really interesting. But before we go there, let me address something. Some of you are thinking, Peter, I literally cannot find an extra $250 a month. I've cut everything already. And if that's truly the case, then we need to talk about the other side of the equation, which is income. Here's the brutal truth. Sometimes you can't cut your way to financial independence. Sometimes the math just doesn't work. If your income is too low relative to your cost of living, you're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. So let's talk about that. How do you actually increase your income when you're already working full-time and barely keeping your head above water? Because this is the part of the roadmap nobody wants to talk about. It's easier to say invest in index funds than to say, hey, you might need to figure out how to make more money. But I'm going to break down exactly how to do it, and it's probably not what you're expecting. Chapter 3, the income gap problem, and the 3 ways to actually fix it. Okay, so here's what I wish someone had told me when I was 26 years old, broke and frustrated. You cannot save your way to wealth on a poverty income. You just can't. If you're making $35,000 a year and living in any major city, the math doesn't work. Even if you're incredibly disciplined, even if you cut everything, you're maybe saving $200 to $300 a month max, and that's if nothing goes wrong, ever. And this is where a lot of financial advice completely falls apart, because it assumes you're starting with a decent base income. It's all invest 15% of your income and max out your 401k. Okay, cool, but what if 15% of my income is literally $350 a month and my rent is $1,400? So we need to talk about closing the income gap, and there are really only 3 legitimate ways to do this. I'm going to walk through all 3, but here's the thing. They're not all equal. They don't all work for everyone, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. Method 1. Level up your current career track. This is the path most people default to because it feels safe. You've got a job, so just get better at it. Get promotions, climb the ladder. And look, this can work, but it's slow and it's not guaranteed. Here's the reality of this path. The average raise in America right now is about 3 to 5% per year. So if you're making $50,000, you're looking at an extra $1,500 to $2,500 a year before taxes. That's like $100 to $175 a month extra in your pocket. It helps, but it's not game-changing. Now, if you can jump to a new company doing the same work, that's where the real money is. Studies show that people who switch companies every 2 to 3 years earn 30 to 50% more over their career than people who stay put. This is actual data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. When you stay at one company, you get those little 3% raises. When you leave and get hired somewhere else, you can negotiate a 10 to 20% jump.
So if this is your path, and for some people it is, especially if you're in a field with good career ladders like tech, healthcare, finance, you need to be strategic. You're not just doing your job, you're building your case for why you deserve more money. Here's what that actually looks like. Every month, you document your wins. You closed a big client? Write it down with numbers. You improved a process that saved the company time or money? Document it with specifics. You took on additional responsibilities? Track it. Because when it comes time to ask for a raise or interview somewhere else, you need receipts. And here's something most people don't do. You need to have a conversation with your boss about what it would take to get promoted or get a significant raise. Not just, I'd like more money. That doesn't work. You need to literally ask, what specific outcomes or achievements would I need to demonstrate to be considered for a raise to X dollars or a promotion to Y position? Get them to tell you the criteria, then go execute on exactly those things. If they're vague or won't commit, that tells you something too. Might be time to look elsewhere.
But here's the problem with this method. It's capped. You can only climb so fast within a corporate structure, and in a lot of industries, there's a ceiling that's just there. You're not going from $50,000 to $150,000 in 3 years through promotions at the same company. It's not happening. Which brings us to method 2. Switch to a higher-paying industry or role. This is the scary one because it often means starting over in some capacity, but it's also the one with the biggest immediate upside if you do it right. Here's what I mean. Some industries just pay more than others for comparable levels of stress and hours. A mid-level marketing person at a nonprofit might make $45,000. The same skill set doing marketing for a tech company, $75,000 to $95,000. Same work, different industry, different pay scale. Or look at roles. An executive assistant in most industries makes $40,000 to $55,000. But if that same person rebrands as a chief of staff or operations manager and targets startups or smaller companies where they can take on more ownership, suddenly that same skill set is worth $70,000 to $90,000. The trick here is identifying your transferable skills and finding where they're most valuable. And I know that sounds like corporate speak, but let me give you a real example. I have a friend, let's call her Sarah, who was a middle school teacher making $43,000 a year. She was good at it, loved the kids, but financially she was drowning. Student loans, rent in a city where teachers are underpaid, the whole thing. She spent 3 summers doing a coding boot camp, not because she loved coding particularly, but because she saw it as a path to better income. 18 months after finishing, she's making $85,000 as a junior developer at a mid-sized company. Same working hours as teaching, way less stress actually, and almost double the income. Now, did that require sacrifice? Yeah. She spent her evenings and weekends learning to code. She was tired, it was hard. But 18 months of hard versus another decade of financial stress? She'll tell you it was worth it. The highest paying industries you can break into with skills you can learn in 2 years or less are tech, software development, product management, UX design, healthcare adjacent like medical coding, healthcare IT, sales, especially B2B SaaS sales, and certain trades like electrician, plumber, HVAC. People don't want to hear this, but a good electrician clears 6 figures. But here's what I want to be really clear about. This isn't for everyone. Some people genuinely love their career and aren't willing to switch even for more money. That's completely valid. I'm not here to tell you that making money is the only thing that matters, but if you're watching a 2-hour video about financial independence, chances are the money part matters quite a bit to you right now. So I'm giving you the options that actually work. Method 3. Build a parallel income stream. Okay, this is the one everyone wants to hear about because it sounds like the dream, right? Keep your day job but make extra money on the side doing something you control. And yeah, it's real, but it's also the most misunderstood path. Here's what this is not. Passive income that requires no work. Get rich quick. Drop shipping some garbage product from China. Forex trading. Crypto day trading. Multi-level marketing. Any course that promises you'll make $10,000 a month in 90 days. All of that is noise. Here's what it actually is. You trade your time for money in a different way than your day job, with the potential to scale over time. The most realistic side income streams for normal people are freelancing a skill you already have, creating content that generates ad revenue or sponsorships, building small digital products, consulting, or teaching.
Let me break down what these actually look like with real numbers, because I think this is where most people get lost. Freelancing. You take a skill you have, writing, design, video editing, bookkeeping, whatever, and you do it for clients on nights and weekends. If you're decent, you can realistically make an extra $500 to $1,500 doing this within the first few months. The key is you have to actually be good at the thing, and you have to be reliable. Most freelancers fail not because of skill, but because they're flaky. Just show up, do what you said you would do, and you'll be in the top 20%. Content creation. This is YouTube, TikTok, newsletter, podcast. You're building an audience and monetizing through ads, sponsorships, or products. This is a long game. Realistically, you're not making real money for at least a year unless you go viral. But if you stick with it, I know creators making $3,000 to $10,000 a month once they hit a certain audience size. It's very much a you have to build the thing before it pays you situation. Digital products. This is courses, templates, tools, stock photos, music, anything you create once and sell multiple times. The upside is leverage. You do the work once and it generates income indefinitely. The downside is it usually requires an audience first, but I've seen people make an extra $400 to $800 a month just selling Notion templates or Excel templates to a niche audience. Consulting. If you're good at your day job, there are probably people or companies who would pay you to help them with that specific thing. This is especially true in B2B. You don't need to quit your job to be a consultant a few hours a week, and consulting rates are usually way higher than salary equivalents. If you make $60 an hour at your job, you can probably charge $100 to $150 an hour as a consultant.
Here's my take after watching a lot of people try this. The best side income stream is the one that leverages skills you already have and solves a problem people will pay for right now. Not 6 months from now, right now. For me, it was writing. I was already writing reports and presentations at my day job, so I started freelance writing for companies that needed blog posts and white papers. First month, I made $400 doing maybe 10 hours of extra work. Nothing crazy, but it was $400 I didn't have before. Over the next year, I slowly built it up to about $1,200 a month, working maybe one weekend day and a few evenings. Did it suck sometimes? Yeah. Was I tired? For sure. But that extra $1,200 a month accelerated everything else I'm about to tell you about. So, here's the action step for this section. Pick one of these 3 methods. Level up your career, switch industries, or start a side income stream and commit to it for the next 6 months. Not all 3, not dabbling at all of them. Pick one based on your actual situation and go hard on it. And look, I know this section wasn't as fun as talking about investing or compound interest or whatever, but this is the part that actually matters most, because all the investment strategies in the world don't help if you have no money to invest. You have to fix the income problem first. All right, let's say you've done that. You've built your $2,000 reality check fund. You've started increasing your income through one of these 3 methods. You're no longer living literally paycheck to paycheck. You've got some breathing room. Now what? This is where we start building the actual foundation of wealth, and it starts with something way less sexy than you probably want to hear about. Chapter 4, the Debt Destroyer Framework, why this has to happen before anything else. Okay, I need you to stick with me on this section because I know some of you are going to want to skip it. You're thinking, Peter, I already know debt is bad. Can we just get to the investing part? But here's the thing. If you have high interest debt, everything I'm about to tell you about investing is basically pointless. You're trying to fill a bucket that has a huge hole in the bottom. Let me show you why with actual math, because this is one of those things where the numbers are so stark, it's kind of shocking. Let's say you have $5,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest, which is pretty average right now. If you're paying the minimum payment of like $150 a month, you're paying about $1,100 per year in interest alone. Just interest. You're not even really paying down the principal. Now, let's say you take that same $5,000 and invest it in the stock market instead, and you get the historical average return of about 10% a year. You'd make $500 in returns that first year. See the problem? You're paying $1,100 in interest while making $500 in returns. You're net negative $600. You're literally losing money by investing before paying off the debt. Or here's another way to think about it. Paying off a 22% interest credit card is the same as getting a guaranteed 22% return on your money.
Show me an investment that guarantees 22% returns. You can't. It doesn't exist. The stock market averages 10%. Real estate might get you 8 to 12%. Even the riskiest investments rarely guarantee 22%. So, paying off high-interest debt isn't just a good idea, it's mathematically the best investment you can make. Now, I'm going to give you a very specific framework for how to tackle debt because the order matters. This is what I call the debt destroyer framework, and it's based on a combination of mathematical optimization and psychological wins. Step 1. List every debt with 3 pieces of information. You need to know the total amount owed, the interest rate, and the minimum monthly payment. Write this down. All of it. Yes, even that one you've been ignoring. Step 2. Separate into categories. You've got 3 categories. High interest debt, anything above 15%, credit cards, personal loans, payday loans. Medium interest debt, 6 to 15%, student loans, car loans, some personal loans. Low interest debt, below 6%, federal student loans, mortgages, some car loans. Step 3, the attack strategy. You're going to use what's called the avalanche method with a psychological twist. Here's how it works. You pay minimum payments on everything. That's non-negotiable. You don't miss any minimum payments because that destroys your credit and adds fees. But then any extra money, any dollar above minimums, goes to the debt with the highest interest rate until it's completely gone. Then you move to the next highest interest rate. This is mathematically optimal. You're saving the most money on interest by killing the highest rates first. But here's the psychological twist that makes this actually work. If you have a debt that's under $500, I want you to kill that one first, no matter what the interest rate is. Just wipe it out fast. Here's why. You need a win. You need to see a debt completely disappear from your list. That psychological momentum is worth more than the $30 you might save by being perfectly mathematically optimal.
So the actual order is any debt under $500 first. Then highest interest rate to lowest. Let me give you a real example so this makes sense. Let's say you have credit card 1, $3,500 at 24% interest, $100 minimum. Credit card 2, $1,200 at 21% interest, $45 minimum. Student loan, $18,000 at 6% interest, $180 minimum. Car loan, $8,000 at 5% interest, $220 minimum. Your minimum payments total $545 a month. You've got $750 a month you can put toward debt. That means $205 extra to attack with. First month, kill credit card 2 completely. Put all $205 plus the $45 minimum into it. It's gone in 6 months. Cross it off. After that, take the $250 you were putting into credit card 2, $205 extra plus $45 minimum, and redirect it all to credit card 1. Now you're putting $350 total into credit card 1 while still paying minimums on everything else. See how the momentum builds? Once you kill credit card 1, you take that $350 and roll it into the next target. This is called debt snowballing, and it's incredibly powerful because the amount you can throw at each subsequent debt keeps growing. Now, let's talk about student loans separately because they're a special beast. If you've got federal student loans, there's actually some nuance here. If they're below 5% interest, you don't have to be in a massive rush to pay them off. Some people argue you should invest instead because you'll likely earn more than 5% in the market over time. Mathematically, that can make sense. But, and this is a big but, there's something to be said for the psychological freedom of not having any debt. Some people sleep better at night with no student loan payment hanging over them, even if it's not the most mathematically optimal move. My personal take, if your student loans are above 6%, prioritize paying them off. If they're below 5% and you're disciplined, you can make minimum payments and invest the difference, but that requires discipline. If you're the type who will just spend that extra money instead of investing it, then pay off the loans. What about mortgages? This is the one debt where I say don't rush. If you've got a mortgage at 3 to 4%, which a lot of people who bought homes between 2020 and 2021 have, that's basically free money when you account for inflation. Pay your normal payment. Don't stress about paying it off early. That money is better used investing or building other income streams. But if you have a newer mortgage at 7 or 8%, that's a different conversation. That might be worth paying down faster once you've handled all your higher interest debt.
the brutal timeline. How long does this actually take? Here's what nobody wants to hear. If you've got significant debt, let's say $20,000 to $30,000 in credit cards and loans, it's probably going to take you 2 to 4 years to clear it if you're aggressive. Maybe longer if you're just doing the minimum plus a little extra. But here's what I want you to understand. Those years pass anyway. You can spend the next 3 years still having that debt, still paying those interest payments, still feeling stressed about it, or you can spend the next 3 years actively destroying it and come out the other side completely free. I spent 33 months paying off about $27,000 in debt. It was not fun. There were months where I wanted to quit, where I'd see friends going on trips or buying new stuff, and I'm over here throwing every spare dollar at Discover Card. But when I made that final payment, when I logged into my account and saw $0 and 0 cents owed, that feeling was worth every sacrificed dinner out, every no to weekend trips, every side hustle hour. And here's what happened immediately. Suddenly, I had $800 a month that was previously going to debt payments just available. That's when everything accelerated. So the action item for this section is simple. If you have debt above 15% interest, you're in debt destruction mode. That's your primary financial goal until it's gone. Not saving beyond your initial $2,000, not investing, not building wealth, just crushing that debt as fast as humanly possible. I know that's not the sexy answer, but it's the right one. And once it's done, once you're debt-free, the entire game changes. Which brings us to the next phase, building your actual financial foundation. This is where we start talking about the money moves that lead to real wealth, and it starts with something very specific that most people get completely wrong. Chapter 5, the 3-layer safety net, the foundation everything else is built on. All right, so you've got your $2,000 reality check fund, you've crushed your high-interest debt or you're making serious progress on it, your cash flow is improving because you're not hemorrhaging money to interest payments. Now we build the foundation that actually allows you to take the bigger wealth-building steps without everything collapsing the first time life throws you a curveball. And life will throw you curveballs. That's not pessimism, that's just reality. The question is whether those curveballs destroy your finances or if you handle them without even breaking a stride.
The foundation I'm about to walk you through is what I call the 3-layer safety net, and each layer serves a specific purpose. Most people try to skip to layer 3 without building layers 1 and 2, and that's why they end up back at square one when something goes wrong. Layer 1. The $5,000 No Panic Fund. Remember that $2,000 reality check fund you built? That was level 1. Now we're expanding it to $5,000. This is what I call the No Panic Fund, because once you have $5,000 sitting in a savings account, you can handle almost any single emergency without going into panic mode. Your car needs a $1,200 repair? Annoying, but you handle it. Your laptop dies and you need it for work? You buy a new one. You lose your job unexpectedly? You've got breathing room to figure out your next move without immediately freaking out. Here's what's interesting about the $5,000 number. Research from the Federal Reserve shows that people with at least $5,000 in liquid savings report significantly lower financial stress and are 60% less likely to take on additional debt when unexpected expenses occur. It's like a psychological threshold where you go from barely surviving to actually okay. Now, how long does it take to build this? If you've already got your $2,000, you need another $3,000. If you can save $300 a month, that's 10 months. If you can do $500 a month, that's 6 months. It's not overnight, but it's achievable. And here's what you do with this money. Nothing. It sits in a high-yield savings account. Right now, you can get 4 to 5% on high-yield savings accounts. Marcus by Goldman Sachs, Ally Bank, American Express Personal Savings, these are all FDIC insured, completely safe, and they're earning you actual interest. Not much, but your $5,000 is making you like $20 a month just sitting there. Free money. You do not invest this money. You do not put it in stocks. This is your safety net. It needs to be liquid and guaranteed. Layer 2. The 3-month buffer. Once you've got your $5,000 no panic fund, you start building what I call the 3-month buffer. This is 3 months of your essential expenses, not your total spending, but the absolute essentials.
rent, utilities, groceries, insurance, minimum loan payments if you still have them, everything you need to survive. For most people, this number is somewhere between $6,000 and $12,000, depending on where you live and your situation. If your essential monthly expenses are $2,500, you're shooting for $7,500. If they're $3,500, you're shooting for $10,500. This is the fund that handles the big stuff. You lose your job, you've got 3 months to find a new one without immediately being screwed. Major medical expense? Covered. Your hours get cut at work? You're okay while you figure out a new plan. Now here's something important. You're building this while you're also starting to invest. This is where the strategy shifts. Up until now, I've been saying do this, then do that. But once you have your $5,000 no panic fund and you're debt-free, you start splitting your extra money. Here's what that looks like. Let's say after all your expenses, debt payments are done, and you're putting away money for this buffer, you have $800 extra. I'd recommend putting $500 into building your 3-month buffer and $300 into your first investments. Why split it? Because building this 3-month fund might take you a year or more, and you don't want to wait an entire year before you start investing. You're missing out on time in the market, which we'll talk about soon, but you also can't ignore the safety net. So you're doing both. It's slower on each front, but you're making progress on 2 crucial things simultaneously. Layer 3, the 6-month Freedom Fund. This is the full emergency fund everyone talks about. 6 months of essential expenses. This is the layer that gives you actual freedom. With 6 months of expenses saved, you can take calculated risks. You can leave a toxic job without having another one lined up. You can invest more aggressively because you're not worried about needing to pull that money out. You can breathe. Now, for most people, this is $15,000 to $25,000. That sounds like a lot, because it is. And here's the thing, you don't need this immediately. I'm going to be controversial here for a second. A lot of financial advisors will tell you that you need to have this full 6-month emergency fund before you start investing seriously. And look, I respect that advice. It's safe, it's conservative, you won't go wrong following it. But in my experience, once you have your 3-month buffer, you can shift more aggressively into investing while slowly building towards 6 months in the background. Because here's the reality. If you wait until you have 6 months of expenses saved before you start seriously investing, and that takes you 2 years to build, you've missed 2 years of compound growth in the market. That's a real cost. So my personal approach, and you can take this or leave it, is 3-month buffer is the real threshold. Once you hit that, you're good enough to start investing more heavily. You can still slowly build towards 6 months in the background, but now your focus shifts to wealth building.
Think of it this way. The 3-month buffer is your foundation. The 6-month Freedom Fund is your nice-to-have enhancement. Don't skip the foundation, but don't wait for the perfect enhanced version before you start building wealth. Where does all this money actually go? This is important because keeping $15,000 to $25,000 in cash feels weird to some people. They're like, isn't inflation eating away at this? Shouldn't I invest it? No, this is your safety net. It needs to be safe and liquid. Here's where it goes. Your $5,000 no panic fund, high-yield savings account, somewhere you can access it immediately if needed, but it's not in your checking account tempting you to spend it. Your 3-month buffer, also in a high-yield savings account, but maybe a different one so it feels separate. Some people like to have this at a completely different bank, so there's a small barrier to accessing it casually. Your 6-month Freedom Fund, when you build it, same deal, high-yield savings, safe, boring, earning a little interest. The psychological trick here is to automate it. Every time you get paid, money automatically transfers to these accounts before you even see it. You're paying your future self first. I set this up years ago, and honestly, I forget the transfers even happen now. The money just quietly builds without me thinking about it. It's like, you know how your 401k contribution comes out before you see your paycheck so you don't really miss it? Same concept. The timeline for all 3 layers. If you're starting from zero and you can save $500 a month aggressively, $5,000 no panic fund, 10 months. Your 3-month buffer, $7,500, another 15 months. Your 6-month Freedom Fund, another $7,500, another 15 months. That's 40 months total, or about 3.5 years to have the complete foundation in place. Now, is that exact timeline going to work for everyone? No.
Some people can save more and do it faster. Some people are working with less and it takes longer. But the point is, this is doable. It's not a fantasy. It's a real, achievable path. And here's what's cool. Once you have this foundation, everything changes. You're no longer operating from fear. You're no longer one bad month away from disaster. You can make decisions based on what's best for your future, not what keeps you afloat this week. This is what I mean by financial independence, starting way before you have $1 million. It starts the moment you have enough saved that you're not scared anymore. All right, so you're building the safety net. You've got some breathing room. Now let's talk about the thing everyone actually wants to hear about, investing and building real wealth. But I'm going to approach this differently than most people do, because I think the way investing gets taught is backwards. Okay, let's talk about investing. And I'm going to start with the thing that screws up most people before they even begin. They think investing is complicated. They think you need to understand the stock market, read financial statements, pick winning stocks, time the market, all that. Wrong. That's all wrong. Here's the truth. The best investment strategy for 95% of people is so simple it's almost boring. And the reason most people don't follow it isn't because it doesn't work. It's because it's not exciting enough. There's no thrill, no I picked the next Amazon moment. It's just consistent, steady, boring wealth building. And you know what? Boring works. Boring makes you rich. Exciting makes you broke. Let me show you what I mean with some actual numbers, because this is one of those things where the math is so clear it's kind of insane that anyone does anything else. Let's say you invest $500 a month starting at age 30. Just $500. You put it in a boring S&P 500 index fund that averages about 10% annual returns, which is the historical average. You do this until you're 60. 30 years of investing $500 a month. You've contributed $180,000 of your own money over those 30 years. But because of compound growth, that account is now worth $987,000, almost $1 million. Now let's say your friend decides they're going to be a stock picker. They're going to find the winners. They spent hours researching companies, watching CNBC, reading articles, trying to time when to buy and sell. And let's say they're good at it, better than average. They beat the market by 2% most years because of their skill, but they also make some mistakes. They sell at the wrong time sometimes, they hold losers too long. When you average it all out, they're maybe getting 8% returns over those same 30 years. They invest $500 a month for 30 years. They've contributed the same $180,000, but their account is $679,000. Same contribution, $300,000 less, just because they tried to be smart instead of being simple. And here's the kicker. Your friend spent hundreds of hours researching and managing their investments. You spent maybe 3 hours a year rebalancing your index fund. They worked way harder for way worse results. This is the paradox of investing that nobody wants to accept. Effort does not equal returns. In fact, more effort often equals worse returns because you're introducing human emotion and error into the equation.
Warren Buffett, literally one of the richest investors of all time, has said repeatedly that most people should just invest in low-cost index funds, not because it's exciting, because it works. So here's the mindset shift you need to make. Investing isn't about being smart or picking winners. It's about being consistent and staying in the game long enough for compound growth to do its thing. What are you actually investing in? For most people, your portfolio should be stupid simple. 80 to 90% in a total stock market index fund or S&P 500 index fund. 10 to 20% in a total bond market index fund. That's it. That's the whole strategy. The stock portion gives you growth. Historically, stocks return about 10% per year on average. Some years more, some years less, but over long periods, that's the average. The bond portion gives you stability. Bonds don't grow as much, maybe 4 to 5%, but they're less volatile. When stocks crash, bonds usually don't crash as hard, so they smooth out the ride. When you're younger, 20s, 30s, even 40s, you want more stocks because you have time to ride out the volatility. As you get older and closer to needing the money, you shift more into bonds to protect what you've built. There are these things called target date funds that do this automatically.
You pick the fund with the date closest to when you'll retire, like target date 2055 if you plan to retire around 2055, and the fund automatically adjusts from stocks to bonds as you get older. It's investing on autopilot. Where do you actually do this investing? You've got a few options, and the right one depends on your situation. Option 1. Your 401k if your employer offers one. This is step 1 if you have access to it. Here's why. Most employers match your contributions up to a certain percentage. Usually it's something like, we'll match 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary. Translation, if you make $50,000 and you contribute 6%, $3,000 a year, your employer puts in another $1,500. That's free money. That's an instant 50% return before the money even gets invested. If your employer offers a match and you're not contributing at least enough to get the full match, you're leaving free money on the table. It's like if someone offered you a $1,500 gift and you said, "Nah, I'm good." Don't do that. The downside of 401ks is that you usually have limited investment options. You can't just buy any index fund. You have to pick from the menu your employer provides. But most menus include at least one decent S&P 500 or total market index fund. Find it, pick it, set your contribution, and forget about it. Also, the money in a 401k is locked up until you're 59 and a half. If you take it out early, you pay taxes plus a 10% penalty. So this is long-term money only. Option 2, an IRA, individual retirement account. This is what you use if you don't have a 401k or if you've maxed out your 401k match and want to invest more. There are two types, traditional IRA and Roth IRA. The difference is when you pay taxes. Traditional IRA, you contribute pre-tax money, you get a tax deduction now, it grows tax-free, and you pay taxes when you withdraw in retirement. Good if you think you'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Roth IRA, you contribute after-tax money, no tax deduction now, it grows tax-free, and you withdraw tax-free in retirement. Good if you think you'll be in the same or higher tax bracket in retirement. You can contribute up to $7,000 a year to an IRA as of 2024. Where do you open one? Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. All three are excellent. Low fees, good options, easy to use. You literally go to their website, click Open an Account, pick Roth IRA, link your bank account, and set up automatic contributions. Takes maybe 20 minutes. Option 3, a regular taxable brokerage account. This is for money you want to invest but might need before retirement. No tax advantages, but also no restrictions on when you can withdraw. You open this at the same places, Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, and you invest in the same index funds, but you'll pay taxes on any gains when you sell. This is what you use once you've maxed out your retirement accounts and you want to keep investing more. The actual investment strategy is this. Here's the step-by-step. 1. Contribute to your 401k up to the match if you have one. 2. Max out a Roth IRA, $7,000 a year. 3. Go back to your 401k and contribute more if you can. And once you're maxing those out, open a taxable brokerage account. And in each account, you're buying the same boring index funds, total stock market or S&P 500 for stocks, total bond market for bonds. You set up automatic contributions so money goes in every month without you thinking about it. And then, and this is the hard part, you do nothing. You don't check it every day. You don't panic when the market drops. You don't sell. You just let it sit there and grow. The biggest mistake people make is panic selling. The market drops 20%, which it does occasionally, and people freak out and sell everything. They lock in their losses and then they miss the recovery because they're too scared to get back in.
Here's what you need to understand. Market drops are normal. They happen. In fact, the market drops 10% or more about once every 2 years on average. It drops 20% or more about once every 6 years. And it crashes like 30 to 40% drops maybe once or twice in your investing lifetime. And every single time throughout all of history, the market has recovered and gone on to hit new highs. The 2008 financial crisis, the market dropped 50%. If you panicked and sold, you lost half your money. If you held on, you not only recovered, but doubled your money over the next decade. March 2020, COVID crash, market dropped 34% in like 3 weeks. If you sold, you locked in massive losses. If you held, you recovered in 6 months and had huge gains over the next 2 years. The people who get rich from investing are the ones who do nothing when everyone else is panicking. They just hold. They keep contributing. They buy stocks while they're on sale during the crash. I know this is easier said than done. When you see your account drop $10,000 or $20,000 in a week, your lizard brain is screaming at you to sell. But that's exactly when you need to do nothing. Here's a trick that helps. Don't look at your accounts during market crashes. I'm serious. If the news is full of stories about the market dropping, just don't log into your investment accounts. What good does it do? You're not selling anyway, so don't torture yourself by watching the numbers go down. Check your accounts maybe once a quarter to rebalance if needed, and that's it. Otherwise, just let them be. How much should you actually be investing? The standard advice is 15% of your gross income. So if you make $60,000, that's $9,000 a year, or $750 a month. But here's my take. Invest as much as you can without making your life miserable. If you can do 15%, great. If you can do 20% or 25%, even better. If you can only do 10% right now, that's fine too. The key is to start and to be consistent. Remember, you're also building your emergency fund at the same time, so maybe you're putting 10% toward investing and 5% toward your safety net until that's built. Then you shift to 15 or 20% toward investing once the safety net is done. What matters most isn't the exact percentage, it's that you're doing it consistently, month after month, year after year. That's where the magic happens. And look, I get it. When you're making $50,000 a year and living in an expensive city, finding $500 a month to invest feels impossible. That's real. But this is why we talked about increasing income earlier. This is why we talked about crushing debt, because once you've done those things, you create space to actually invest meaningful amounts. If you're still in the I can only invest $100 a month phase, that's okay. That's better than zero. Invest the $100, but also work on the income side so you can increase that number over time. All right, let's talk about the thing that nobody wants to acknowledge, but completely changes the game once you understand it. Okay, this is where stuff gets interesting, and it's something I wish someone had explained to me years ago. There's this phenomenon that happens around the $75,000 to $100,000 household income level that fundamentally changes your financial trajectory, and most people have no idea it exists. Here's what I mean. Below $75,000, especially if you're living in a moderate to high cost of living area, you're basically just trying to survive and save what you can. Your income mostly goes to necessities. You're probably saving 5 to 10% if you're disciplined, maybe 15% if you're really aggressive and your expenses are low. But something happens once you cross about $75,000. Your necessary expenses don't really increase that much. Think about it. Your rent doesn't double. Your grocery bill doesn't double. Your car payment doesn't double. These things might increase a little as you make more money. Maybe you upgrade to a slightly nicer place or buy slightly better food, but they don't scale proportionally. So if you're making $50,000 and $35,000 of that goes to necessary expenses, you've got $15,000 left to work with. That's 30% of your income. But if you're making $90,000 and maybe $45,000 goes to necessary expenses, because yeah, you upgraded some stuff, but not everything, you've now got $45,000 left. That's 50% of your income. See what happened? Your savable or investable percentage just jumped from 30% to 50% just by increasing your income, even though your lifestyle improved. This is what I call the savings acceleration point, and it's why the jump from $50K to $90K is way more valuable than people realize. It's not just 80% more income, it's like 200% more saving potential if you're smart about it. Let me give you a real example with actual numbers because this is important. Person A making $50,000. Take home after taxes is around $40,000. Necessary expenses, $30,000. Left for saving or investing, $10,000, a 20% savings rate. Person B making $85,000. Take home after taxes is around $65,000. Necessary expenses, $38,000, upgraded lifestyle a bit. Left for saving or investing, $27,000, a 31.7% savings rate on gross income. Person B is making 70% more than person A, but they can save 170% more. The math is exponential, not linear. And if person B is really disciplined and keeps their lifestyle closer to where it was, what some people call lifestyle creep prevention, they could keep expenses at $35,000 and save $30,000 a year. That's a 35% savings rate. At a 35% savings rate with good investing returns, you can achieve financial independence in about 20 to 25 years. At a 20% savings rate, it takes 35 to 40 years.
This is why increasing your income is so crucial in the early years. Every dollar of increased income has a multiplier effect on your wealth-building trajectory. The trap most people fall into, they hit this $75K to $100K range, and instead of saving the difference, they spend it. They're like, oh cool, I make more money now. Time to upgrade everything. New car, bigger apartment, fancier restaurants, more expensive vacations, all of it. And look, I'm not saying you should live like you're broke when you're making $90,000. You should enjoy your life. But the smart move is to upgrade maybe 25% to 30% of that increase and save or invest the rest. So if you go from $50K to $90K, that's $40,000 more in gross income, maybe $28,000 more in take-home after taxes. You might let your lifestyle inflate by $8,000 to $10,000 a year. That's like $700 to $800 a month extra to enjoy life. That's meaningful. That's a nicer place, better food, some travel, whatever you want. But the other $18,000, that goes straight to investing and wealth building. Now you're investing $1,500 a month instead of $500. And that's the difference between retiring at 65 and retiring at 50. The psychological battle, here's why this is hard. When you're making $50K and you finally start making $90K, you feel like you made it. You've been grinding, you've been sacrificing, and now you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor. That's completely human and understandable. But this is the crucial moment where you have to make a choice. Do you want to feel rich now? This is why increasing your income is so crucial in the early years. Every dollar of increased income has a multiplier effect on your wealth-building trajectory. The trap most people fall into, they hit this $75K to $100K range, and instead of saving the difference, they spend it. They're like, oh cool, I make more money now. Time to upgrade everything. New car, bigger apartment, fancier restaurants, more expensive vacations, all of it. And look, I'm not saying you should live like you're broke when you're making $90,000. You should enjoy your life. But the smart move is to upgrade maybe 25% to 30% of that increase and save or invest the rest. So if you go from $50K to $90K, that's $40,000 more in gross income, maybe $28,000 more in take-home after taxes. You might let your lifestyle inflate by $8,000 to $10,000 a year. That's like $700 to $800 a month extra to enjoy life. That's meaningful. That's a nicer place, better food, some travel, whatever you want. But the other $18,000, that goes straight to investing and wealth building. Now you're investing $1,500 a month instead of $500. And that's the difference between retiring at 65 and retiring at 50. The psychological battle, here's why this is hard. When you're making $50K and you finally start making $90K, you feel like you made it. You've been grinding, you've been sacrificing, and now you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor. That's completely human and understandable. But this is the crucial moment where you have to make a choice. Do you want to feel rich now, or do you want to actually be rich later? Because here's the thing, $90,000 a year is good money, but it's not never worry about money again money. If you spend it all on lifestyle, you're just a well-paid paycheck-to-paycheck person instead of a broke paycheck-to-paycheck person. But if you can resist the temptation to inflate your lifestyle with every raise and instead capture 50 to 70% of your income increases for wealth building, that's when you start building real financial independence. The one thing rich people do differently, I've talked to a lot of people who've built significant wealth, like $2 million to $5 million net worth, and the one common thread is this. They all increased their income over time, and they didn't increase their lifestyle proportionally.
They're driving 10-year-old cars while making $200,000 a year. They're living in nice but not extravagant houses. They're not wearing fancy watches or designer clothes. They're just quietly saving and investing massive amounts of money. And then one day, they wake up in their 40s or 50s and realize they never have to work again if they don't want to. They have FU money. They have options. They have freedom. Meanwhile, their colleagues who made the same income but spent it all are still trapped, still dependent on that paycheck, still stressed about money despite making six figures. The difference isn't income, it's the savings rate made possible by controlled spending. How to actually implement this? When you get a raise, before you do anything else, increase your automatic investment contributions by at least 50% of the raise amount. So if you get a $5,000 raise, about $350 more per month after taxes, immediately increase your 401k or IRA contributions by $175 a month. The other $175 you can use to enjoy life a little more, but lock in that investment increase first. This is called paying yourself first, and it's the single most important habit you can develop. Same thing if you get a bonus. Have to invest them, have to enjoy. Same thing if you make extra money from a side hustle. Have to wealth building, have to enjoy or pay off debt. You create this split where you're always directing future income growth toward your future freedom while still allowing some lifestyle improvements so you don't feel deprived. And over time, as your income grows and your lifestyle stays relatively constant, the gap between what you make and what you spend gets bigger and bigger. That gap is your wealth-building engine. That's what buys you freedom. We're about an hour into this, and if you're still with me, first of all, I'm impressed. Second, we've covered the foundation, getting out of the paycheck-to-paycheck trap, building your safety net, starting to invest consistently, and understanding how income growth accelerates everything. Now I want to shift gears and talk about something that most financial advice completely ignores: how to actually optimize your biggest expenses so you can save more without feeling deprived. Because here's the thing, you can invest perfectly and still struggle financially if you're hemorrhaging money on 3 or 4 big things. Chapter 8, the big 3 expense killers and how to slash them without sacrificing quality of life. All right, so here's something that bugs me about most financial advice. It's all about cutting out small stuff. Stop buying coffee, cancel Netflix, bring lunch to work. And sure, those things add up, but you know what really kills your finances? 3 massive expenses that most people just accept as that's what life costs. I'm talking about housing, transportation, and food. These 3 categories probably eat up 60 to 70% of your income. And the crazy part is, you can cut each of them by 20 to 40% without actually sacrificing that much quality of life if you're strategic about it. Let me break down each one because the specific tactics matter here. Housing, the expense that doesn't care about your feelings. The standard advice is don't spend more than 30% of your gross income on housing. But you know what? In most major cities, good luck with that. The average American now spends about 35 to 40% of their income on housing, and in places like San Francisco, New York, or LA, people are spending 50 to 60%.
This is insane. If half your income is going to rent or mortgage, you're basically working Monday through Wednesday every week just to pay for housing. The rest of your income is split between everything else. You see why wealth building feels impossible? So how do you fix this without living in a terrible place or moving to the middle of nowhere? Tactic 1, the roommate calculation. I know, you're 32 years old and you don't want a roommate. I get it. But let's do the math. If you're paying $1,800 for a 1-bedroom apartment and you could split a 2-bedroom for $2,400, you're now paying $1,200 instead of $1,800. That's $600 a month saved. That's $7,200 a year. That's $60,000 invested over 10 years with compound growth. Is not having a roommate worth $60,000? Maybe it is to you, and that's fine, but at least know what the actual cost is. And here's the thing, having a roommate doesn't have to mean living with a random person who annoys you. Find a friend who's also trying to save money. Find someone with a similar lifestyle. Make it work strategically. I had a roommate until I was 31, and honestly, it was fine. We both worked a lot, barely saw each other, split a nice place in a good location, and I saved an extra $550 a month for 3 years. That was $20,000 I invested that's now worth about $32,000. Zero regrets.
Tactic 2, geographic arbitrage within your city. You don't have to move to a different city, but you probably can move to a cheaper neighborhood within your city without your life falling apart. Here's what I mean. In most cities, there are trendy neighborhoods where everyone wants to live, and then there are perfectly fine neighborhoods that are maybe a 15-minute train ride further out where rent is 30% cheaper. You're not moving to a dangerous area. You're not moving somewhere terrible. You're just moving somewhere that's less hot right now. When I lived in Chicago, I could have rented in Lincoln Park for $2,200, or I could rent in Logan Square for $1,450, same size apartment. Logan Square was a 20-minute train ride to downtown instead of 10 minutes. That's it. That extra 10 minutes saved me $750 a month. Tactic 3, the mortgage optimization play. If you're buying instead of renting, the biggest mistake people make is buying as much house as the bank will lend you. The bank doesn't care about your financial independence. They care about lending you as much money as possible so they make more interest. If the bank says you're approved for $500,000, buy a $350,000 house. You'll have a smaller mortgage payment, you'll pay less interest over time, and you'll have way more cash flow to invest. I know people want the nice house, but a slightly less nice house that costs $150,000 less might be the difference between retiring at 55 and working until 70. Just saying. Transportation, the $800 a month money pit. The average car payment in America right now is $726. Add insurance at $150, gas at $200, maintenance at $100, and you're at $1,176 a month. That's $14,000 a year to own and operate a car. And here's the thing that kills me. People finance $40,000 cars on a $60,000 salary and think it's normal. It's not. It's financial suicide. Here's the truth about cars. They're depreciating assets that cost you money every single month. The goal isn't to have the nicest car. The goal is to have reliable transportation that costs as little as possible. Tactic 1, the $10,000 used car strategy. Instead of financing a $35,000 new car, save up $8,000 to $12,000 and buy a used car outright. Something reliable. Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla, Mazda 3, that kind of thing. 3 to 5 years old with 40,000 to 60,000 miles. No car payment, you own it. Yes, you might have a slightly higher maintenance cost, but even if you're spending $1,200 a year on maintenance, that's $100 a month. Compare that to a $650 car payment plus maintenance. But Peter, I can't save up $10,000 for a car. Okay, so save $5,000 and buy a $5,000 car for now. It's not going to be your dream car. It might be a little old, but it's transportation. And every month you're not making a car payment is a month you can save toward a better car, or better yet, invest that money. I drove a 2003 Honda Accord for 7 years, bought it for $6,500 cash, put about $2,000 into it over those 7 years for repairs. Total cost of ownership was $8,500 for 7 years, or about $101 a month. Meanwhile, my coworkers were paying $500 to $700 a month for new cars. They thought I was cheap. I thought I was smart. Tactic 2, go car-free if possible. I know this doesn't work for everyone, but if you live in a city with decent public transit, do you actually need a car? Run the numbers. If a car costs you $800 a month and you could instead spend $200 on public transit, $150 on ride shares for when you really need one, and $150 on car rentals for weekend trips, you're at $500, still saving $300 a month, and you don't have to deal with parking, maintenance, insurance, any of it. I went car-free for 2 years when I lived in a city with good transit. Saved me about $700 a month. That was $16,800 over those 2 years that I invested. Currently worth about $24,000. Zero regrets. Food, the invisible budget destroyer. Here's where people are in complete denial. They're like, I only spend $300 a month on groceries, and then you look at their bank statement and there's another $600 on restaurants, takeout, coffee shops, bars, and delivery fees. The average American household spends about $850 a month on food. That's $10,200 a year. And here's the thing, you can cut that by 40% and still eat really well if you're just slightly more intentional about it. Tactic 1, the meal prep Sunday strategy. 1 day a week, usually Sunday for most people, you cook in bulk for the week. Not fancy meal prep with 17 containers and perfect macros, just making enough food that you have lunches and dinners mostly covered for the next 5 days. You're not going to do this perfectly. You'll still eat out sometimes. But if you go from eating out 12 times a week to eating out 4 times a week, you've just cut your food budget by probably $350 to $400 a month. I do a really basic version of this. Sunday afternoon, I make a big batch of chicken, rice, and roasted vegetables. Also make a pot of chili or soup. That gives me lunches for most of the week and a few dinners. Takes me maybe 90 minutes. Saves me probably $300 a month compared to buying lunch every day and getting takeout for dinner. Tactic 2. The grocery store budget game. This sounds too simple to work, but it does. Go to the grocery store with a list and a budget. Don't deviate from the list. Pay cash if you have to, so when the money's gone, you're done shopping. Most people grocery shop on vibes. They wander around, throw stuff in the cart, and then are surprised when it's $180 at checkout. Instead, plan your meals for the week, make a list of exactly what you need, and buy only that. Also, and this is important, eat before you go shopping. If you shop hungry, you buy way more crap you don't need. Tactic 3. The restaurant strategy shift. You don't have to stop eating out completely, but you can be smarter about it. Instead of getting delivery, which adds 30 to 40% in fees and tips, go pick it up yourself. Instead of expensive restaurants 3 times a week, do cheaper spots or cook at home most of the time and save the nice restaurants for special occasions. Also, and this might sound stingy, but I don't care, split entrees or skip appetizers and dessert. You don't need a $14 appetizer and a $28 entree and a $9 dessert every time you eat out. Just get the entree, or split one entree and one appetizer with your partner. You'll be fine. The combined power of optimizing all 3. Here's where it gets real. Let's say you implement even moderate versions of these strategies. Housing, save $400 a month by having a roommate or moving to a cheaper neighborhood. Transportation, save $350 a month by driving an older paid-off car instead of financing new. Food, save $300 a month by meal prepping and being strategic about eating out. That's $1,050 a month you just found. That's $12,600 a year. Invested over 20 years at 10% returns, that's $764,000. You just found $750,000 by being slightly more strategic about 3 expenses. And the beautiful part is, you're not suffering. You're still living in a decent place, you have transportation, you're eating well, you just optimize the big stuff. This is what I mean when I say financial independence isn't about deprivation. It's about being intentional with the big decisions so you can be relaxed with the small ones. All right, we're past the halfway point. We've covered getting out of the paycheck trap, building your foundation, investing basics, the income acceleration point, and optimizing your big expenses. Now let's talk about something that I think is the secret weapon most people never build: multiple income streams. Chapter 9, The Multiple Income Stream Philosophy, Why One Paycheck is Risky as Hell. Here's something that occurred to me a few years ago that kind of blew my mind. Most people have exactly one source of income, their job. If they lose that job, their income drops to 0 immediately. That's it. Game over. They're scrambling. And we just accept this as normal. That's how life works, right? You have a job, you get a paycheck, that's how you make money. But think about how insane that is from a risk perspective. You're building your entire financial life on a single thread. If that thread breaks, layoff, company goes under, you get fired, the industry changes, you're screwed. Compare that to someone who has multiple income streams. Maybe they have their job, but they also have rental income from a property, dividend income from investments, a small side business, and freelance work. If they lose their job, their income drops, but it doesn't go to 0. They have time to figure out their next move without panicking. This is what wealthy people understand that most people don't. Security comes from diversification of income, not just from having a good job. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about passive income BS where you make money while sitting on a beach doing nothing. That's mostly a fantasy. I'm talking about building real, diversified income streams that compound over time. Let me walk through the realistic ones because there's a lot of misinformation about this. Income stream 1, your primary job. This is your foundation. For most people, this is the biggest source of income for years, maybe decades, and that's fine. The goal isn't to replace this immediately. The goal is to eventually have this be one of several streams, not the only stream.
Your job should be optimized for learning skills, building relationships, and earning enough to fund your other income streams. Some people optimize for salary only, but I think it's smarter to think about what skills and connections you're building that could translate to other opportunities. Income stream 2, investment income. Dividends, interest, capital gains. This is the most passive of all real income streams. You invest money and it generates returns. Early on, this is tiny. If you have $10,000 invested generating 10% returns, that's $1,000 a year. Not life-changing. But remember that compound growth we talked about. This stream grows exponentially over time. After 10 years of consistent investing, this might be generating $5,000 to $10,000 a year. After 20 years, it could be $30,000 to $50,000 a year. After 30 years, it could be your largest income source. This is the slow build income stream. It requires patience, but it's also the most reliable because it's just math. Market goes up over time, your investments grow, you eventually have real income from them. Income stream 3, freelance or consulting work. This is trading your skills for money outside of your primary job. The advantage is you control the rate and the amount of work. Early on, this might be a few $100s a month, but as you get better and build a reputation, this can scale to several thousand a month. I know people who freelance 10 hours a week and make an extra $2,000 to $3,000 a month. The key is to freelance something you're already good at. Don't try to learn a new skill to freelance it. Use skills you've already developed at your job. You're a decent writer? Freelance writing. You're good at graphic design? Freelance design. You're good at bookkeeping? Freelance bookkeeping. You know Excel really well? Help companies build models and dashboards. The trick is finding clients, which happens through networking, referrals, and just being visible in online communities where your target clients hang out. Income stream 4, digital products or content. This is creating something once and selling it multiple times. Courses, ebooks, templates, stock photos, music, whatever. This one takes time to build but has high leverage. You create the thing, you market it, and it generates income while you sleep. Not a lot at first, but it compounds. I know a guy who created a $50 course on Excel for accountants. Took him about 60 hours to create. He sells maybe 15 to 20 copies a month. That's $750 to $1,000 a month for something he created once 2 years ago. He updates it once a year for a few hours. Otherwise, it just runs. The mistake people make is creating a product without an audience. Build the audience first through social media, a blog, YouTube, whatever, and then create a product for them. Way easier than creating a product and trying to find buyers. Income stream 5, rental income, real estate. This is controversial because real estate requires capital up front, but if you can swing it, rental income is powerful. Let's say you buy a small property, maybe a duplex. You live in one unit and rent out the other. Your mortgage is $2,000 a month and you rent out the other unit for $1,400. You're living for $600 a month in housing costs. Or you save up and buy a small rental property. After mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance, maybe it cash flows $300 a month. Not much, but you do that with 3 properties and now you've got $900 a month in rental income. Plus, the tenants are paying down your mortgages, building your equity. Real estate isn't for everyone. It requires capital, it can be a hassle, and it's not truly passive, but it's one of the most proven wealth-building strategies that exists. The goal is 3 to 5 income streams over time. You're not building all of these at once, that's impossible. But over a 10 to 15-year period, you're gradually adding streams. Years 1 to 3, job income plus starting to build investment income through consistent investing. Years 4 to 7, job income plus meaningful investment income plus freelance or side business bringing in extra cash. Years 8 to 12, job income plus solid investment income plus established side income and possibly rental income if you went that route. Years 13 plus, investment income is substantial. Side business or freelancing is mature, possibly rental income. Your job is now optional. See the progression? It's not overnight, but you're methodically reducing your dependence on any single source of income. The psychological shift. Here's what changes when you have multiple income streams. You stop being afraid.
You're not terrified of losing your job because you know you'll be okay. You have options. You can take more risks in your career because you're not completely dependent on that paycheck. This is what financial independence actually feels like before you hit your number. It's the feeling of, I'll be fine no matter what. I hit this point about 2 years ago. My job is still my biggest income source, but I also have investment income generating about $18,000 a year, freelance writing that brings in $1,200 to $1,800 a month, and a small digital product that makes about $400 a month. If I lost my job tomorrow, my income would drop by maybe 60%, not 100%. I'd have time to figure out my next move. That psychological security is worth so much more than the actual dollar amounts.
All right, let's shift into the advanced stuff. You're making progress, you're building multiple streams, you've got momentum. Now let's talk about the thing that most people completely ignore until it's too late: tax optimization. Okay, I'm going to say something that might sound obvious, but most people don't really think about. The goal isn't to make a lot of money. The goal is to keep a lot of money. And one of the biggest wealth destroyers is taxes. Now, let me be clear. You should pay the taxes you owe. Tax evasion is illegal and stupid, but tax avoidance, using completely legal strategies to minimize your tax bill, is smart. Rich people do this. Corporations do this. You should do this. The difference between someone who makes $100,000 and pays $28,000 in taxes versus someone who makes $100,000 and pays $18,000 in taxes through smart legal strategies is $10,000 a year. Over 20 years invested, that's $572,000. You can literally retire years earlier just by being smarter about taxes. So let's talk about the actual strategies that work for normal people. Not crazy offshore schemes, just smart legal ways to keep more of your money. Strategy 1. Max out all tax-advantaged accounts. We talked about 401ks and IRAs earlier, but let me hammer home why these are so powerful from a tax perspective. Traditional 401k and IRA contributions reduce your taxable income now. If you make $80,000 and you contribute $10,000 to your 401k, you only pay taxes on $70,000. At a 22% tax bracket, that's $2,200 in tax savings right there. And then the money grows tax-free. You don't pay capital gains taxes on the growth every year like you would in a regular brokerage account. It just compounds tax-free for decades. Yes, you pay taxes when you withdraw in retirement, but here's the thing. Most people are in a lower tax bracket in retirement than during their working years, so you're paying taxes at a lower rate later. Roth IRAs work differently. You pay taxes now, but then everything grows tax-free forever and you never pay taxes on it again. If you're young and in a low tax bracket, this is an insane deal. The max contribution limits for 2024. 401k, $23,000. IRA, traditional or Roth, $7,000. HSA, health savings account, $4,150 if you have a high deductible health plan. If you can max all three, you're sheltering $34,150 from taxes. For most people making under $150,000, that alone will drop you into a lower tax bracket. Strategy 2. HSA triple tax advantage. Okay, this is sneaky good and nobody talks about it enough. If you have a high deductible health plan, you can contribute to an HSA, health savings account. Here's why it's amazing. 1, contributions are tax deductible, lowers your taxable income. 2, growth is tax-free. 3, withdrawals from medical expenses are tax-free. That's 3 tax benefits. No other account has 3. And here's the trick. You don't have to use the money for medical expenses right away. You can invest it, let it grow for decades, and use it for medical expenses in retirement. Healthcare gets expensive as you age, so you're building a tax-free medical fund for later. I've been maxing my HSA for 4 years. I don't touch it. I pay for medical expenses out of pocket and let the HSA grow. It's now about $18,000, and it's invested in index funds. In 30 years, that'll be like $300,000 tax-free for healthcare costs. Strategy 3. Tax loss harvesting. This one's a bit more advanced, but it's powerful if you have a taxable brokerage account. Here's how it works.
If one of your investments drops in value, you can sell it, take the loss, and use that loss to offset gains in other investments or up to $3,000 of regular income. Then you immediately buy a similar but not identical investment so you stay invested in the market. Example, you bought $10,000 of a stock. It drops to $8,000. You sell it, realize a $2,000 loss. You use that loss to offset $2,000 of gains from something else you sold, so you pay no taxes on those gains. Then you buy a different but similar stock for $8,000 to stay invested. This is completely legal. It's called tax loss harvesting, and wealthy people do this all the time. Some robo-advisors like Wealthfront and Betterment do it automatically for you. Strategy 4. Optimize your W-4 withholding. Most people get a big tax refund every year and they're like, yay, free money. No, that's not free money. That's your money that you let the government hold interest-free for a year. If you're getting back more than like $500 on your tax refund, you're over withholding. You should adjust your W-4 so you're getting more money in each paycheck and breaking even or owing a small amount at tax time. Why does this matter? Because that money could have been invested all year instead of sitting with the IRS. Let's say you usually get a $3,000 refund. That means you've been giving the government $250 a month that could have been in your investment account earning returns. Over a year, that's like $150 in lost gains. Over 20 years, that's $69,000 in lost compound growth. Adjust your withholding, get more money in your paycheck, invest it immediately. Strategy 5. The side business tax benefits. If you have any side income at all, freelancing, consulting, a small business, you can deduct a lot of expenses that you can't deduct as an employee. Home office. If you use part of your home exclusively for business, you can deduct that portion of your rent or mortgage, utilities, internet. Equipment. Computer, phone, software, anything you use for the business. Mileage. If you drive for business purposes, that's 67 cents per mile deductible. Education. Courses, books, conferences related to your business.
I'm not saying to cheat. Everything has to be legitimate business expenses. But if you're already spending money on these things for your side work, you might as well deduct them. I have a friend who makes about $15,000 a year from freelance work. After legitimate deductions, her taxable income from that business is like $8,000. She's saving about $1,500 a year in taxes just by properly tracking and deducting expenses. Strategy 6. Charitable giving, if you're already doing it. If you're already donating to charity, do it strategically. Instead of giving cash, donate appreciated stock from your brokerage account. Here's why. Let's say you bought stock for $1,000 and it's now worth $2,000. If you sell it and donate the cash, you pay capital gains tax on the $1,000 gain. But if you donate the stock directly to the charity, you get a $2,000 tax deduction and you never pay the capital gains tax. The charity gets the same value, you get a bigger tax benefit. Win-win. The combined impact. Let's say you make $90,000 a year and you implement just a few of these strategies. Max your 401k, $23,000, reduces taxable income. Max your Roth IRA, $7,000, not tax deductible, but tax-free growth. Max your HSA, $4,150, reduces taxable income. Proper W-4 withholding, extra $200 a month to invest. Side business deductions, save $1,500 in taxes. Your taxable income just dropped from $90,000 to about $63,000. You went from paying around $17,000 in federal taxes to paying around $10,000. That's $7,000 saved. Plus, you've got an extra $2,400 a year from proper withholding to invest. That's $9,400 total back in your pocket every single year. Over 20 years, that $9,400 a year invested becomes $536,000. You just found $500,000 through legal tax strategies. This is the stuff rich people know. This is what financial advisors help wealthy clients do, and you can do all of it yourself with a little bit of knowledge and discipline. All right, we're getting into the final stretch.
Let's talk about the phase where you're actually building real wealth. You've got your foundation, you're investing consistently, you're optimizing expenses and taxes. Now it's about accelerating and getting to that financial independence finish line. Chapter 11. The acceleration phase, from $100,000 net worth to real freedom. Okay, so here's something nobody tells you about building wealth. The first $100,000 is absolutely brutal. It takes forever. You're grinding, you're sacrificing, you're being disciplined, and it feels like you're barely making progress. Charlie Munger said the first $100,000 is a bitch, and he's right. It took me about 5 years to hit my first $100,000 in net worth, and there were months where I was like, is this even worth it? I'm in my late 20s living like I'm broke while my friends are out having fun. But then something magical happens. The second 100,000 is way faster, and the third one is faster than that. And by the time you're going from 500,000 to 600,000, it happens in like 18 months. Why? Compound growth. At smaller numbers, compound growth doesn't look like much. 10% of 10,000 is $1,000. Cool. But 10% of 500,000 is 50,000. Your investments are making more in a year than you can contribute. This is the acceleration phase, and it's where all that early discipline starts to pay off big time. The net worth milestones that actually matter. Let me give you the specific milestones and what changes at each one, because these are psychological and practical turning points. $25,000 net worth. This is where you stop being financially fragile. You've got your emergency fund, maybe some investments starting. You're not wealthy, but you're stable. One emergency doesn't wipe you out. $50,000 net worth. You start to feel momentum. Your investment returns are noticeable. You're making maybe $4,000 to $5,000 a year just from investment growth. That's starting to feel real. $100,000 net worth. This is the psychological barrier. You're officially in six figures. And this is where compound growth starts to feel powerful. At 10% returns, your money is making $10,000 a year. That's meaningful income from your investments alone. $250,000 net worth. You're solidly upper middle class in terms of net worth. Your investments are probably making $20,000 to $30,000 a year. You're not financially independent yet, but you can see the path. $500,000 net worth. This is where life changes. At 4% withdrawal, which is the sustainable rate most experts recommend, you could pull $20,000 a year from investments indefinitely. That's not enough to retire on for most people, but it's significant supplemental income. $1 million net worth. You're a millionaire. Congrats. At 4% withdrawal, that's $40,000 a year. If your expenses are low, you might actually be able to retire on this, especially if you have other income sources. If your expenses are higher, you're close but not quite there yet. $2 million plus net worth. This is legitimate financial independence for almost everyone. At 4% withdrawal, that's $80,000 a year. Combined with Social Security later, maybe some side income, most people can live very comfortably on this indefinitely. How to actually accelerate through these milestones. Once you pass that first 100K and you've got momentum, here's what accelerates wealth building even more. Tactic 1. Increase your income aggressively. Every $10,000 increase in income that you don't inflate your lifestyle with is another $10,000 a year you can invest. That's $100,000 in investment contributions over 10 years, which becomes $230,000 with compound growth.
This is why I keep coming back to income. You can only cut expenses so much, but income can scale dramatically. Tactic 2. Capture every raise and bonus. When you get a raise or bonus, immediately increase your automatic investment contributions by at least 75% of the increase. Don't let it hit your checking account where you'll spend it. Tactic 3. Invest windfalls intelligently. Tax refund, birthday money, sold something, whatever. If it's over $500, invest at least half of it. Don't let windfalls disappear into random spending. Tactic 4. Rebalance toward risk as you build.
When you're just starting and you have $10,000 invested, being 100% stocks is risky because you can't afford a major market drop when you're just getting started. But once you're at 200,000 or 300,000, you can handle more volatility because you've got time and size working for you. This is counterintuitive to traditional advice that says get more conservative as you age. I'm saying get more aggressive as your net worth grows, then get conservative again as you approach your target. The power of focus during this phase. Here's what I've noticed about people who successfully accelerate through this phase. They become borderline obsessed with their net worth number. Not in an unhealthy way, but they're tracking it. They've got a spreadsheet. They know exactly where they are and how far they have to go. They're running calculations on how many more months until they hit the next milestone. This focus creates motivation. When you can see that you're $15,000 away from $250K and you know that if you hustle on your side business for a few extra months, you'll hit it, you hustle. When you're vague about your finances, you drift. I update my net worth spreadsheet every month. Takes like 5 minutes. I log into my accounts, put the numbers in, see the chart go up, usually, and every time I see that upward trajectory, it reinforces that what I'm doing is working. The big trap is lifestyle inflation. You're making more money now. Your net worth is growing. You feel successful. So you start spending more. You move to a nicer place. You buy a nicer car. You go on fancier vacations. And suddenly, your savings rate drops from 30% to 20% to 15%. And here's the brutal math. If you drop your savings rate from 30% to 15%, you just doubled the time it'll take to reach financial independence. You went from maybe 20 years to 40 years. That one decision, letting lifestyle inflate, cost you 20 years of freedom. I'm not saying don't enjoy your money, but during this acceleration phase, you want to maintain or even increase your savings rate as your income grows. This is the time to go hard, not to coast. You'll have plenty of time to enjoy money once you hit financial independence, but if you ease up too early, you might never get there. All right, we're coming into the home stretch. I promised you earlier that I'd save the best insight for the end, the thing that changes everything once you hit a certain level. So let's get into it. Okay, so here's the thing that nobody wants to hear, but it's probably the most important insight in this entire video. Financial independence isn't actually about hitting a specific number. It's about figuring out what enough looks like for you, and then relentlessly pursuing that, not more. Here's what I mean. Most people think financial independence means having millions of dollars, FU money, never working again, living like a baller. And sure, for some people that's the goal. But here's what I've learned from studying people who've achieved financial independence and from getting closer to it myself. The real magic number isn't as high as you think, and the real goal isn't what you think it is. Let me break this down because it's subtle but powerful. The enough calculation. Financial independence really just means your passive income plus any side income you want to keep covers your expenses indefinitely, with some buffer. So the real question is, what are your annual expenses? Most people don't know. They have no idea what they actually spend per year. They're like, maybe 40,000, maybe 60,000? They're guessing. So step one is you need to know your real number. Go through a full year of expenses and calculate it. Every dollar. Be honest, don't lowball it because you want the number to be smaller. Let's say your real annual expenses are $48,000. That's $4,000 a month. Everything. Housing, food, insurance, fund money, travel, everything. The standard financial independence formula says you need 25 times your annual expenses. So 25 times 48,000 is $1.2 million. At that point, you can safely withdraw 4% per year, $48,000, indefinitely. The 4% rule is based on historical data showing that a 4% withdrawal rate from a diversified portfolio will last 30-plus years even through market crashes and inflation. So, if your expenses are $48,000 a year, your financial independence number is $1.2 million. But here's where it gets interesting. That's full financial independence where you never work again and live entirely off investments. But there are other levels of independence that happen before you hit that number, and honestly, they might be more valuable.
Let's say you're 35 and you want to retire at 60. If you have $300,000 invested now and you never add another dollar, at 10% annual growth, that becomes $3.2 million in 25 years. You're Coast FI. You can stop the aggressive saving and investing. You just need to cover your living expenses with your job or whatever work you want to do. This is powerful because it takes the pressure off. You don't have to hate your job anymore because you're not dependent on it for wealth building. You can take a lower-paying job you enjoy more. You can work part-time. You have options. Barista financial independence. This is where your investments cover most of your expenses, but you work part-time or do some side work to cover the gap, and especially to cover healthcare. Let's say your investments can safely give you $30,000 a year, but your expenses are $48,000. You need another $18,000. Work a part-time job that pays $18,000 a year, that's like 15 hours a week at $25 an hour, and you're good. You're not fully financially independent, but you're 75% there. And that 75% feels amazing because you're only working part-time doing something you don't hate. Lean financial independence. This is hitting your FI number, but with lean expenses. Instead of needing $1.2 million to support $48,000 a year in expenses, maybe you move somewhere cheaper or optimize your lifestyle so you only need $30,000 a year. Now your FI number is $750,000. You can hit that way faster. Some people do this by moving abroad to places with lower cost of living. Some do it by being minimalist. Some do it by being really strategic about big expenses. But the point is, lower expenses equals lower FI number equals faster freedom. The power of understanding these levels. Once you understand that financial independence isn't binary, it's not work full-time for decades, then suddenly retire, everything changes. You realize you can hit meaningful milestones way before the traditional retirement age. I'm 36 now. My full FI number is probably around $1.8 million given my current lifestyle. I'm at about $420,000 in net worth. If I was measuring against full FI, I'm only 23% of the way there. That's discouraging. But I'm already at Coast FI. If I stopped investing today, my $420,000 would grow to $3.2 million by the time I'm 60 without adding another dollar. So I've technically already secured a comfortable traditional retirement. Everything I'm doing now is about getting to full FI earlier or having more cushion. That knowledge changes how I think about work and money. I'm not desperate. I'm not stuck. I'm building optionality. What enough actually means. Here's the final piece, and this is what I wish someone had told me 10 years ago. The goal isn't to have the most money. The goal is to have enough money that money stops being something you think about. I know people with $5 million who are stressed about money. They're worried about maintaining their lifestyle, about market crashes, about running out. They never feel like they have enough. I know people with $800,000 who never think about money. They have enough for their needs, they live within their means, they're completely content. The difference isn't the number, it's the relationship with money. So the real strategy, the thing that actually leads to financial independence is this. Figure out what enough looks like for you. Not what society says, not what your friends have, what makes you feel secure and content. For some people, that might be $600,000 invested in a paid-off house. For others, it might be $2 million. There's no wrong answer, but you have to actually define it. And then, and this is crucial, once you hit it, you have to stop. You have to say, I have enough, and shift your focus from accumulation to living. Because here's the trap I see all the time. People hit their number and then they move the goalposts. Well, I wanted 1 million, but now I think I need 1.5 million to be safe. Then they hit 1.5 million and they're like, actually 2 million would be better.
They never stop. They never feel like they have enough. They waste their lives accumulating money they'll never spend because they can't break the cycle. This is the real reason most people never feel financially independent, even when they have plenty of money. They haven't defined enough, so they're chasing a finish line that keeps moving. My enough number. I'll share mine to make this concrete. My enough number is $1.5 million invested, plus a paid-off house. At that point, I could safely pull $60,000 a year from investments indefinitely. I don't have housing costs. My annual expenses would be around $35,000 to $40,000, so I'd have buffer. At that point, work becomes optional. I might still work because I like what I do, but I don't have to. That's the definition of FU money, the ability to say no thanks to anything that doesn't serve you. I'm not there yet. I'm probably 6 to 8 years away if I stay on my current trajectory, but I know where I'm going. And more importantly, I know I'll stop there. I won't move the goalposts. I'll hit 1.5 million plus paid off house, and I'll shift my life focus from accumulation to living. That clarity is powerful. It keeps me motivated but not obsessed. It keeps me disciplined but not deprived. The 3 questions that define your enough.
If you want to figure out your enough number, ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. What does a normal year of expenses look like for me at a lifestyle I'm genuinely happy with? Not poverty level, not luxury level, just genuinely content. 2. What would I do with my time if work was optional? This helps you figure out if you even want full retirement or if you want some version of part-time work. 3. What dollar amount in investments would make me feel completely secure? Be honest, not what sounds good, what would actually make you sleep well at night. Your answers to these questions will give you your enough number, and that becomes your target. Why this changes everything. Once you know your enough number and you commit to stopping there, several things happen. First, you stop comparing yourself to others. It doesn't matter if your coworker makes more or has a fancier car or a bigger house. You're not in that race anymore. You're running your own race toward your own finish line. Second, you can actually enjoy the journey. When the goal is vague, make as much money as possible, you never feel like you're winning. But when the goal is specific, hit $1.5 million invested, you can track progress. You can celebrate milestones. You can see yourself getting closer. Third, you'll actually reach it because the finish line doesn't move. So many people never achieve financial independence not because they don't make enough money, but because they never define what independence means. They're aiming at a moving target. The final mindset shift. Financial independence isn't about money. It's about freedom. It's about waking up and knowing you can spend your time however you want. It's about not being afraid. It's about having options. And here's the thing, you can start building that freedom right now. Not in 20 years when you hit your number, right now. Every dollar you save is freedom purchased. Every debt payment is freedom reclaimed. Every investment is future freedom created. Every time you say no to unnecessary spending, you're saying yes to future options. This is why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I've watched too many people waste their lives trading time for money at jobs they hate, buying stuff they don't need, living for some vague future retirement that might never come. And I've also watched people, not a lot, but some, who figured this out early and built lives they actually wanted. They're not all millionaires, they're not all retired at 35, but they're free. They have options. They're not scared. They're living on their terms. That's what this is really about. Not getting rich, getting free. Chapter 13, the action plan. Your next 90 days. All right, we've covered a ton of ground, like a lot. And if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, that's normal. This is basically a semester-long personal finance course compressed into 2 hours. But here's what I don't want. I don't want you to close this video, think, wow, that was informative, and then do nothing. That's what most people do. They consume information but never implement it. So I'm going to give you a very specific 90-day action plan. These are the exact steps you should take in the next 3 months to start building real momentum toward financial independence. I'm breaking this into 3 30-day phases because trying to do everything at once is how you fail.
You need to build one habit at a time, get it locked in, then add the next one. Days 1 through 30, clarity and foundation. Week 1, calculate your exact monthly expenses. Go through the last 3 months of bank and credit card statements, every dollar. Write it down. Calculate your net worth, assets, savings, investments, property, minus liabilities, debt. This is your starting point. Write it down. Open a high-yield savings account if you don't have one. Link it to your checking. This is where your emergency fund lives. Week 2, set up the account structure I talked about earlier. At minimum, checking for income, savings for emergency fund, and separate accounts for fixed and variable expenses if you want to go that detailed. Start tracking every expense for the month. Use an app like Mint or YNAB or just a spreadsheet. You need to see where your money goes. Week 3, review your debt. List every debt with the balance, interest rate, and minimum payment. Create your debt payoff plan using the avalanche method. If you have any debt under $500, target that first for the psychological win. Set up automatic minimum payments on everything so you never miss a payment. Week 4, start building your $2,000 reality check fund. Set up an automatic transfer every time you get paid. Even if it's just $50 per paycheck, start. Review all your subscriptions and recurring charges. Cancel at least 3 things you don't really use or value. Research your 3 income increase options. Can you level up your current job, switch industries, start a side income stream? Pick one to focus on.
Week 6. If your employer offers a 401k with a match, make sure you're contributing enough to get the full match. If you're not, increase your contributions starting next paycheck. Open a Roth IRA if you don't have one. Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. Takes 20 minutes. You don't have to fund it yet, just get it open. Research which index funds you'll invest in. Start with a target date fund or a simple 80-20 split between total stock market and total bond market. Week 7. Set up automatic contributions to your Roth IRA, even if it's just $100 a month to start. The key is making it automatic. Review your tax situation. Are you withholding too much and getting big refunds? Adjust your W-4 if needed. If you have a side income or freelance work, start tracking your expenses for tax deduction purposes. Week 8. Check in on your $2,000 reality check fund progress. How much have you saved? If you're on track, great. If you're behind, figure out where you can cut more or earn more to catch up. Start your income increase plan. If you chose leveling up your career, have the conversation with your boss about what it takes to get promoted or get a raise. If you chose side income, do your first freelance project or create your first piece of content. Days 61 to 90, acceleration and habit locking. Week 9. Review your spending from the last 60 days. Where did you overspend? Where did you do well? Adjust your budget for the next month based on what you learned. Optimize your second big expense. If you did housing in the first phase, now tackle transportation or food. Calculate your new savings rate based on all the changes you've made. What percentage of your income are you saving now? Week 10. If you have high interest debt, make a big push this week. Can you throw an extra $200 or $500 at it? Sell something you don't need, work extra hours, make a dent. Research one advanced financial concept you want to understand better. Maybe it's tax loss harvesting. Maybe it's real estate investing. Maybe it's options trading, though I'd skip that one, honestly. Learn something new. Week 11. Set up a net worth tracking system, spreadsheet or an app like Personal Capital. Update it with all your accounts. Calculate your Coast FI number. How much do you need invested now to hit your FI number by age 60 or 65 without adding more? Are you on track? If you haven't already, define your enough number. What's your FI goal? Write it down. Make it real. Week 12. Review everything you've done in the last 90 days. How much has your net worth increased? How much debt have you paid off? How much have you saved or invested? Celebrate your wins. Seriously, you've made massive progress in 3 months. Most people never do what you just did. Now, go execute. Take the first step today. Open that savings account. List your debts. Set up that automatic transfer. Whatever the first step is for you, do it today. Not tomorrow, today. Because every day you wait is a day you could have been building momentum, and momentum is everything. The long-term rhythm.
After these first 90 days, you're in maintenance and optimization mode. Here's what that looks like. Monthly, update your net worth spreadsheet, review your spending and make sure you're on track, make extra debt payments or investment contributions if you have extra money. Quarterly, review your investment allocation and rebalance if needed. Check in on your FI progress. Are you on track to hit your goals? Adjust your budget or strategy if something's not working. Yearly, do a full financial review. Update your FI number if your expenses have changed. Celebrate how far you've come. Increase your investment contributions. Every year, try to increase your savings rate by at least 1%. Assess your income. Are you being paid what you're worth? Should you ask for a raise, switch jobs, scale your side income? The momentum principle. Here's what happens if you actually do this. After 90 days, you have real momentum. You're not just thinking about getting your finances together, you're actually doing it. You can see progress. After 6 months, these habits are locked in. Budgeting is automatic. Investing is automatic. Debt payoff is on autopilot. You're just maintaining the system. After a year, you look back and you can't believe how much has changed. Your net worth has probably increased by $10,000 to $30,000 depending on your situation. Debt is significantly reduced or gone. You have an emergency fund. You're investing consistently. You feel completely different about money. After 3 years, you're in the acceleration phase. Your net worth is growing faster than you can contribute because compound growth is kicking in. You're on track to hit real milestones. After 10 years, you might be financially independent, or close enough that work is optional. That's not a fantasy, that's math. That's what happens when you execute this system consistently for a decade. The final thing. Look, I know this is a lot. I know it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But here's what I've learned after doing this for years and watching others do it. It's worth it. Every sacrifice you make now pays dividends forever. Every dollar you invest today is working for you for the rest of your life. Every habit you build now makes everything easier later. The alternative is what? Working until you're 70? Being stressed about money forever? Never having options? Never feeling free? That's the default path if you don't do something different. So, yeah, it's hard, but staying broke is also hard. Pick your heart. I believe you can do this. You wouldn't have watched a 2-hour video about financial independence if you weren't serious. That alone puts you ahead of most people. Now, go execute. Take the first step today. Open that savings account, list your debts, set up that automatic transfer. Whatever the first step is for you, do it today. Not tomorrow, today. Because every day you wait is a day you could have been building momentum. And momentum is everything.
Conclusion. The real meaning of FU money. We've been talking for 2 hours about financial independence, and I want to end with what FU money actually means, because I think people get this wrong. Most people think FU money means having enough money to tell your boss to fuck off and walk out. That's part of it, but it's not the real magic. The real magic of FU money, of financial independence, is that you never have to say it. You never have to tell anyone to fuck off because you're not in situations where you feel trapped anymore. You don't hate your job because you only take jobs you actually want. You're not in toxic relationships because you don't need someone else's income to survive. You're not scared of change because you have a cushion. You're not desperate because you have options. Financial independence means living life on your terms. That's it. That's the whole thing. It means waking up and deciding how you want to spend your day, not having someone else decide for you. It means working if you want to, not because you have to. It means saying yes to opportunities because they excite you, not because you need the money. That's freedom. Real freedom. And it's available to you, not to some special group of people, not just to people who make 6 figures or who got lucky or who have rich parents. To you, if you're willing to do the work. The roadmap is right here. You know exactly what to do. Build your reality check fund. Crush your high-interest debt. Create your 3-layer safety net. Start investing consistently. Increase your income. Optimize your big expenses. Build multiple income streams. Minimize taxes legally. Define your enough number. And execute consistently for years.
That's the path. That's how you go from paycheck to paycheck to financial independence to FU money. It's not magic, it's not complicated, it's just math and discipline and time. The question is, are you going to do it? Because you can watch 100 videos, read 100 books, consume all the information in the world, but nothing changes until you actually do something. So do something. Today. Right now. Your future self is counting on you. Thanks for sticking with me for 2 hours. If this was valuable, share it with someone who needs to hear it. We all need more people around us who understand this stuff. Now go build your freedom. I'll see you on the other side.